We're sticking with the West Ham situation because it's very much on the minds of almost every West Ham fan this morning. Is Lopetegui almost a dead man walking? He's at the training ground, but he's still in a job. Will he still be in a job tonight? Will he be in a job when they play Villa towards the end of the week? It's reported this morning West Ham United have offered Graham Potter the head coach job until the end of the season after deciding to sack Lopetegui. Potter apparently has been given a bit of time to make up his mind, but it's driving some West Ham fans nuts, and why wouldn't it? So many of you getting in touch. It would be wrong of us to move on, so we won't. Stick with you for a moment. Ian, sticking with you for a moment. West Ham fan who tried us earlier, now he's through again. What's your take on all of this, Ian? Good morning.
Good morning. It's an embarrassment. The club has been nothing but an embarrassment since Sullivan took over.
I mean, at the moment, Lopetegui still in charge.
Would you wish to 2 years ago when Avram Grant was there?
Yeah. Would you wish life to carry on with Lopetegui, or do you think it's time for a change? And whether that changes in the form of Potter or not remains to be seen. Are you with us, Ian?
He should never have been appointed in the first place.
Lopetegui should never have been appointed.
We should never have got him in the first place. It shouldn't have been him. No, not in the slightest. It's even been widely reported that Steidman didn't even want him. So there was never going to be a good working relationship there when Steidman didn't even want him in the first place. If he's the director of football, he should have a big input in who we're appointing.
Okay, Ian, listen, thanks for the call. Barry's another West Ham fan. Barry, what's your take on all of this? It's hard to work it out, isn't it?
Yeah, good morning, boys. Happy New Year to you both.
Thank you, Barry.
The club I love, he's been disintegrated. Let me tell you something, right? We should never got that manager in the first place. And I said in the summer, Potter's the one to get. I like Potter. I think he's done well. He was at the wrong time at the wrong place at Chelsea. But our club is a joke. Jim, I know you like West Ham. You've got a soft spot for them, haven't you? Yeah?
Yes, absolutely.
I don't.
Simon, you scored about Devonshire and Brooklyn and all them.
I like them, yeah.
No, we were listen, we're a great football club, but we're not a great football team. Right. We got a chairman who don't know what he's doing. David Gold would be turning his grave, he would now. All this John Lyle, Ron Greenwood, all them, Johnny Byrne, Bobby Moore, you know?
So what's the way to fix this then, Barry, as far as you're concerned? Say goodbye to Lopetegui and get Potter in. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, why are they offering Potter a 6-month contract when Everton, with a new ground coming in, could go and say, right, it's a 3 or 4 year deal? And I understand that Potter's missus is best friends with Karen Brady, apparently.
You know more than us, Barry. You know that we're into the conspiracy theories there. James is another West Ham fan. James, good morning. Do you think it's probably time up for Lopetegui, and why not try Potter? What's your thinking?
Morning, Jim. Morning, Simon. Yeah,
Morning.
Look, it's clearly not worked at all. I mean, even my gut feeling when he was appointed as this manager's never going to work for us. Even in pre-season, it was worrying. I was watching West Ham thinking, boys, we don't look right. So, look, it's the results clearly aren't good enough. Potter knows how to fix West Ham, and I reckon 6 months isn't enough, but. You know, I think Potter wants to take his time. And also, I think, look, it's a question for Simon, actually. The owners are pretty savvy at West Ham, whatever Simon might think there. But I think they're at a point where let's wait and see what happens with Potter. Who knows, right? Lopetegui might do the honourable thing and agree to leave mutually or resign, you know, because if you got that axe over your head, Simon, what would you think?
Well, I wouldn't hasten to add what I think a manager would do. A manager's not going to give you anything. If you don't want him anymore, the last thing he's going to do is the honourable thing. He has a contract. He's going to remind the ownership that he has a contract, and he's going to want to get paid on it. So there's no naivety about football managers and what they're entitled to. Very, very rarely do they walk away from something, and he's not walking away. He's been asked to leave. So if he's being asked to leave, he's going to tell the ownership that he wants to get paid, and the contract terms and whatever obligations West Ham have to him is what he's going to want, and how they pay it may be the debate. But the Potter argument. Well, I'm not in the camp that I think Potter is the panacea for your whatever ails you think you've got. But whatever else you've got, if Potter comes in, I'm certainly think he needs longer than a 6-month contract. I don't understand why an experienced operator. I know what you want to do, which is achieve an outcome that has no risk attached to it, which basically means if I bring you into the door and it doesn't work out, I haven't got a liability for you. But that's not how this industry works. And West Ham aren't big enough a club to dictate to a manager like Potter that perhaps is being sought after somewhere else, or, we'll give you 6 months because we're West Ham. The manager's going to go, and what? Why am I signing that contract? And, no one's actually got any bleeding hearts at the moment for Sean Dyche, who apparently being spoken about behind his back. Ultimately, Everton are doing the same thing as West Ham are doing. But the point is that if Potter's going to go to West Ham and he's going to fix whatever the problem is at West Ham, which is about how they're playing. I think they're a top 12 side, so they're 2 points out of where they should be, quite frankly, but 2 places. But ultimately, they want to see better football. Potter might be able to provide it, but he's not going to do it in 6 months, is he?
No. James, if you hear any bit of news later on talkSPORT regards West Ham, what do you hope that news is?
I hope it's Graham Potter, because look, we have got a habit of clown appointments. Avram Grant, Pellegrini, Lopetegui. None of them have been good enough for West Ham, and they haven't been able to figure it out. We need an English manager, and I think Graham Potter's the guy for us, and he'll fix it as well, because he'll play that attacking football, possession-based football that we saw at Brighton and Swansea.
Well, James, what is good enough for West Ham? You've listed that. You've given us a bunch of names there. Grant, Pellegrini, who weren't good enough. What is good enough?
Well, everybody talks about the West Ham way, right? And the West Ham way, really, it's about playing a type of football that we can all get behind each week. And we don't have to win every week in, week out. We just want to see attractive, exciting football. We want to talk amongst ourselves about who's exciting us on the pitch. We've got some, for the first time ever, we've got some really, really, really great players at West Ham, right? And we're lacking a yard of pace, but if you're a manager, you know how to set that up. What you don't do is play a high-line defence, right? Because we know you're going to get caught out because we ain't got a pace in defence. But we've got some decent players.
Listen, thank you very much indeed, James, for the call. There's an interesting message, Simon, from a Brighton fan. Doesn't give his name, but anyway. Potter was good for us, and we were good for him.
Yeah.
But it wasn't always popular. Easy on the eye football. Yes, at times, but one home win in a calendar year at one stage in every club, but he's been at, they don't score a lot of goals. He'd need time at West Ham and patience. Is he going to get either of those?
Well, not if he's given 6 months, he's not, no, because ultimately they're asking a manager to take a job, and I quite like it, but it's just not how this industry works. I think they should have to earn the right to be in longer-term contracts, and I'm not sure that Potter has, but notwithstanding it, if he's getting the offer, if the industry offers you longer-term contracts, and then one outlier says that we're not going to do that, then that outlier is going to find themselves on the other side of the conversation. If you look at West Ham on Saturday, I mean, there's no way that was a 4-1 result. It was because that's what Man City scored.
Yeah.
But the game wasn't a 4-1 game. West Ham were in that game, and if they'd been a little bit more clinical at certain times, that would have been a far different outcome, because Man City were not convincing, were not compelling, and were challenged by West Ham on a number of occasions. I didn't think West Ham were that bad. I don't think West Ham were that bad. And of course, West Ham fans will come on and turn around and say, well, you don't watch us every single week. No, because I'm not a bloody West Ham fan. But the point is that I also look at them and I think, well, where do you expect them to be? You've got a manager that's been in situ for 4 or 5 months. This preparedness to go, the players won't play for him. Oh, they won't they? How about we're appalled by the players not doing what the manager asks? Why is this constant narrative that comes up from fan bases that it's everybody else's fault but the players? I'm not seeking to... They're young kids, some of them. They need to be immunised or protected from the exposure that football can produce for younger players.
Yeah.
But where does it come that players are constantly insulated and it's everybody else? It's the idiot owner that didn't do this, or it's the manager that didn't do that, and the players are not playing for him. Well, why don't they do as they're told?
But that's life, isn't it? It's always the individual at the top of the house.
I agree.
Yeah.
But not to the point where people are just excused and unilaterally excused, but the players aren't playing for him. Oh, they aren't they?
There's James, a West Ham fan. You ask us what we want. I tell you what we want. We just want to see a team, every time they go out, they give 110% for the manager and for the fans. That's all we want.
Well, you got that with David Moyes, didn't you? We just didn't like the style of football.
It's time to take a quick look at the latest news in the transfer front. We're doing that, Simon and myself, in the company of our colleague talkSPORT's chief football correspondent, Alex Crook, who is a very busy man, not only in this month, but every month. What is the latest, mate, coming out of West Ham? I'm looking at the messages, Alex, that are coming in all the time, and we know it's been reported, and you kicked it all off yesterday. West Ham have offered Potter the head coach job, reportedly until the end of the season, after deciding to sack Lopetegui, who's still in situ.
Yeah, I've got to say I feel a little bit sorry for Julen Lopetegui at this stage, because he's reported for duty at the training ground this morning. Man goes to work is no headline in isolation, but the fact that West Ham are being so public, and we've all seen the photo of Tim Steidten, the sporting director, in conversation with Graham Potter about their pursuit of a new manager, it does have hallmarks of the way it ended for David Moyes towards the end of last season. You'll remember that Tim Steidten was banned from the dressing room, and he's been asked to stay away by Lopetegui from the training ground for similar reasons. So it's all a little bit of a mess. What I did report yesterday afternoon, I stand by that West Ham have made the decision. They are going to change the manager. I think it's a question of when and not if now. An offer, as you say, has been made to Graham Potter. That's been on the table for some time, actually, since they looked at replacing Lopetegui at the end of last year. And the question now is, will Potter take it until the end of the season? Is he potentially asking for something a little bit longer term now that we're a little bit further down the line? But either way, it's not going to be long for Lopetegui. He knows that. The owners know that, the fans know that, and the players do as well. So it's a bizarre situation.
So we just keep an eye on it for the rest of the day, the rest of the week?
Yeah, I think so. The other name that's been mentioned to me, by the way, in terms of someone West Ham has spoken to in recent days, is Paulo Fonseca. So clearly they're doing their homework on alternative targets in case it doesn't quite happen with Graham Potter. And Potter's been in this situation before. He was very close to signing on the dotted line with Leicester, asked for more time to consider their offer, and I think the owner there refused to wait, and that's when Steve Cooper got the job. So it's going to be fascinating to see how this develops. But for West Ham, it's a bit of a state of flux, isn't it? Not just in terms of the manager, but in terms of the season, because I mentioned on breakfast this morning, they're not bad enough to be relegated. There are far too many bad teams below them in the table, but they're not really going anywhere either, are they? So this FA Cup game against Villa on Friday night live on talkSPORT really saves their season if they win. If they don't, it's going to be quite a grim second half of the season.
You must scratch your head about how certain clubs do business. I mean, when you're at Palace, try to keep it quiet. Make the decision that you want to make, Simon, and you stood by your decision, and you cracked on after that.
Well, yeah. I mean, there's no straight line negotiations. Often not. They're convoluted. But I don't understand why your sporting director is being photographed with the person that you're interviewing. It doesn't need to be that way. I mean, I'm not a great admirer of the way David Sullivan does business. I've done business with him, so I can speak from experience. So nothing is straightforward with him. He's like nailing a jelly to the wall. But the point is that this is not the optics that they should want to have, and it's not right that they should operate this way. I don't shed a tear for a football manager. As I said earlier on, they're the ones waiting in the wings for the other guy to get fired. So it goes around in cycles.
Yeah.
So he'll get paid for not doing a particularly great job.
Yeah.
But he's only been there 5 minutes, and and what do you expect? A cultural change in a very short period of time? I don't know. West Ham fans have a strange view of things.
Alex, Manchester United, Casemiro, Steady Eddie. He was christened by one Graham Souness. What's happening? Is he out of there?
I think they'd like him to be, but then they liked him to be in the summer, and it didn't quite happen. I think Dan Ashworth was partly held responsible for that, maybe harshly. Fresh interest from Saudi Arabia, from Cristiano Ronaldo's Al Nassr, no less. Big wage packet on the table, and I think it probably suits all concerned now if this move happens. He was poor, wasn't he, against Newcastle in that game last week? Him and Eriksen in midfield completely overrun, so clearly he's not going to get much game time now, I don't think, under Ruben Amorim. I think this window, a lot of United fans are messaging me on social media every day and saying, who are we signing? I still think the main aim this window is to get players out the door rather than bring players in. We've got the Marcus Rashford situation, rumours in Italy that AC Milan and Juventus are looking at him on loan, and I have been told in the last hour or so that United are resigned to the fact when it comes to Marcus Rashford, they're not going to be able to sell him this month. The best case scenario is they send him out on loan. They find a club who are willing to take on the burden of his wages. But I think they're still going to have to contribute significantly to that.
So they end up, if anything happens, they'll end up loaning him out.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
And it could happen late in the window. It wouldn't surprise me if on deadline day you and I are together and there's a sort of Raheem Sterling type deal whereby he joins a club and Manchester United still end up picking most of the tab for his wages.
Yeah. Mark Gahey in the news. Are Chelsea going to get him from Palace?
This is an interesting one because obviously Palace fought so hard to keep him in the summer, kept him out of the clutches of Newcastle, but all the time his contract is running down. I've always been told that Mark Gahey doesn't intend to sign a new deal, so at some point they're going to have to make the decision to cash in. Chelsea's interest is not new. I wrote about this again 6 months ago that they were keeping tabs on him. They've lost Fofana due to injury for the rest of the season, and he's one of the options that's being explored. Not the only option at Palace because Trevor Chalobah is there on loan. Chelsea do have a recall clause, but you wonder if they're almost threatening to activate that recall clause to force Palace into a situation where they sell Gahey.
It'd be strange, wouldn't it, Simon, if Palace end up selling Gahey to Chelsea after fighting so hard, fighting off the bids from Newcastle once, twice, 3 times in the last window, and now do business with Chelsea.
Yeah, I mean, he obviously came from Chelsea, didn't he, in the first place?
He did.
But, I mean, I don't know, how long's he got left on his contract, Alex?
I think it's 18 months.
So they're going to sell him. They're either going to sell him in January or they're going to sell him in the summer. If he's made his position clear that he's not going to sign a contract or extension with Crystal Palace, then he's going to be sold in the summer or now. Because Palace are not going to miss the opportunity to cash in on a player they can't afford to. They can't afford to be in a situation where they've got a clock being wound down and they're going to get 2 and 6 for him. So it's a matter of, if Chelsea pony up the money that will meet Palace's expectations, I suspect they'll sell him.
It's shaping up, I think, to be quite interesting towards the end of it, as usual. The latter stages of the deadline, deadline month.
Yesterday almost felt a little bit like deadline day because there were so many stories, so many messages that I was getting about various players, and then you had the Lopetegui situation. It was also suggested to me yesterday, by the way, that Sean Dyche is not on particularly stable footing at Everton, so we'll keep an eye on that one. I watched them at Bournemouth at the weekend. They got beat 1-0. Bournemouth didn't even play particularly well, didn't have a shot on target. I can understand why the freaking group are looking at this, because you look at Ipswich, who are improving, picked up a good point at the weekend. I think the threat of relegation for Everton, once again, is very real. And I think they're going to need to show a little bit more ambition in games to pull themselves clear of danger.
And you and I are going to do more later today in the Transfer Notebook, are we not?
We are. The new YouTube show, that'll be out probably, this afternoon, tomorrow morning. So plenty to keep us occupied. Simon's favourite time of the year.
Well, I was going to say we could offer you big money to join us, Mr. Jordan.
Thank you. I'll consider it. Can I let you know? Sort of Graham Potter style.
That was a look at the transfer window.
Jim White and Simon Jordan. Monday to Friday mornings from 10 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.